Hey, it's TJ. How you doing today? We're taking a quick look at Roli's new upgraded Equator software, the Equator2. Great MPE designed soft synth. You might be asking yourself, well, TJ, how come you don't have a Roli Seaboard Rise to work with it? Well, you don't necessarily need that. You can use any MPE controller with it, and it also has some options to use a standard controller, non-MPE type stuff. So we're going to take a real kind of deeper dive into this. Go through all the different features, the different architecture, and I'm going to play a few sounds. If you like the video, please do share it and subscribe to this channel. I very much appreciate your support, and check out tjontheroad.com for more. Hey, all right, let's get started. All right, this is Roli's new Equator2 software, the long-awaited update to the original Equator. And this is going to be a deep dive video. If you're looking for presets, they're right here. There's a lot of really good ones here. And I'll be playing a few of them along the way here. But we're going to be doing a deep dive into the synth engine because it is deep. So let's get started. On here there are 6 sources. They are oscillators. Roli calls them sources. I'll probably interchangeably call them sources or oscillators for this video. And they have the ability to have wavetable, sampler, granular, and noise. The wavetable also has the ability to have single cycle waves in here or virtual analog. And you can also drop wavetables in here of your own. Very cool. So let's start with the pulse wave. And you'll see here you have a simple pulse wave. You have the ability to select the unison, either just one voice or as many as, let's see, as many as 5. And they're detuned. And you can do the pulse width modulation here. This is the width. So you can send that to an LFO as a source. We'll be talking about the sources. And all of the sources, the oscillators here, they have the ability to do FM. And you can choose any one of the other sources, oscillators again, for those FM sources. And that can be from any one of these 6 ones here. Okay, I'll just highlight them real quick. Okay, we're going to go back to the top one here. I'll solo that. You can select any one of those as sources. So if I wanted to say have oscillator 1, source 1, modulated by source 2, oscillator 2, I could do that, and I can change the amount here. And that would be changing the source. If I want to change the sound from that, say this is a wave. Again, by just changing the sound on source number 2, oscillator number 2, you'll be able to change the sound from FM. And you can select another one. And then you can also select ring modulation as well. All right, now the next type of synth engine, again, is the wavetable, but now you can select a true wavetable. Oh, I don't know. Let's just pick one of them. Say, I say some bell times. That's a pretty common one. I'll remove this as a source from the FM. So now I can change the wavetable position. And obviously, I can select a source to modulate that wavetable position. Here, instead of the, go back to the signal cycle pulse, instead of the width parameter here that you have, when you choose to use a wavetable, well, that'll change to symmetry. So that changes the angle of the waves. You can change whether it interpolates with the morph, or it has a step-like effect with the different wavetables. Very, very cool. Next, you have a sampler or samples. Here you can load in samples, or you can load in your own. You can drop your own in here. Let's pick a sample. What do we got here? Oboe. Always love the sound of oboe. And you can change the start point. And you can give it a boost. Very, very basic for the sample engine. And then you have granular. That's again using the oboe as the source sample. Change the position, the scan rate, the scanning position. You change the size and the rate of the granule. You can change the attack, the tilt, and the shape of the actual envelope. You can add random pitch to the different granules. Very, very cool. You can change the direction in which they will flow, either forwards or backwards. And this is the mode. It's either whether it will track the notes on the keyboard, or you can set an index. Depending on which mode that you prefer to use. And lastly, you have a noise generator. The different noises are pink, white, and what they call a crackle. And you can set the density of the noise and the width. Now, whenever you double click anything, it'll go back to its default position. So very, very cool. Let's go back to, I don't know, let's pick a wavetable. Here we go. Now, really, really cool thing is each one of these sources, each one of these oscillators has its own filter. Very awesome. And it has a lot of different filter types. You have a low pass, 12 pole, 24 pole, also state variable, high pass. Quickly go through these. You have band pass. You have notch filters. You have saturation. And then you have the ability to do wave folding. Very, very awesome. Individually on every one of the sources, every one of the oscillators. So these types of controls for the filter are very, very common. Obviously, you have your cutoff, the resonance, drive, and your key track. Another really, really cool thing with the filters on the Equator, you have the ability to shape their tone. And you can shape the tone either before the filter or after the filter, pre or post. And you can shape it with additional filters of high or low pass. You can shape the sound of the filters individually on each one of the sources. Very, very powerful stuff. Now, along with the individual filters for each one of these given oscillators, these given sources, as Raleigh calls them, you have two global filters. So the way this works is that each one of these oscillators can be routed. Let's go to the routing menu up here to any one of the two filters that are global, or you can mix them to both. So you can have it in serial, you can have it in parallel, you can have them what they call summed, which is parallel and then it's summed afterwards, or you can do a mix of filter 1 and then filter 2 mixed at the end here. So let's just stick with the serial, for example. And again, for each one of these sources, you can select their destinations, filter 1, filter 2. So if we put it on parallel, you can say you can put it on filter 1 and filter 2. And then you can also set the amount of FX that you want being sent to the different FX section that we're going to talk about a little bit later, and also the individual dry signal. Very, very powerful stuff. And then you have the ring mod, which you can also have set for each individual filter, the effects of 1 and 2 sections, and the dry. All right, so let's talk about modulation sources. We'll go down here to the bottom. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 envelopes. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 LFOs. There's the LFOs. There's the envelopes. With the envelopes, you have your typical ADSR envelope, but you have a number of different choices. You have an ADR envelope where there's no sustain. You have this ADAR, which is actually a looping type of envelope. Let's see, put that on. You can loop that to a sync. And then you have this other cool envelope, which is the ADPR. And what this means is that you have this section here that is like a pluck. So when you release it, you can hear a little bit of a pluck beforehand. So it gives you a little bit of like up note release type of sound. Now each one of these envelopes, you can actually expand them so you can see them all at once if you want to. Or you can take, as I said, the individual ones so you can do the drawing of the points here. Going to the LFOs here, you have sine, rising, and falling sawtooth, triangle, random, that's a glide, and random sample and hold. You can also, with the LFOs, expand upon them. So you're looking at all of them. So you're looking at all 5 of them at once. And then you also have these 2 multi-mods. Now these are really, really cool. We'll expand upon that. You can load these different presets here. They can be envelopes, they can be LFOs, they can be a step sequencer. Let's select the step sequencer. And then you can actually change the steps. Very, very cool stuff. Change the polarity, whether or not they're triggered or they're free running, the release, the sync, all the typical stuff that you would normally see in any synthesizer, but it's all here, and you've got 2 of them. All right, I want to touch back onto the envelopes because you also can change the curve on the envelopes. All right, let me give you a better example here. Say on the ADSR, you can change the curves, pull this out. All right, so that's a lot of fun. You're not stuck with the same curve as being just linear. All right, so next thing you see here, this is the panel for the different types of controls that are involved with either MPE or with a standard controller. So we'll start with the standard controller. You have the velocity. So you can scale the velocity. And what's really, really cool with each one of these controllers is that you actually have 4 different ones of which you can use as sources for different modulation. So you can scale velocity 4 different ways. Or you can scale pitch different ways, 4 different ways. The mod wheel, aftertouch, channel aftertouch in this case. And then the release note off. For MPE mode, you have strike, which is the same as striking the note. You have the glide, which is the pitch. You have the slide, which is the up and down movement on the given key. Now you don't hear anything there because I don't have it mapped to anything, but you can see it being represented. You have the aftertouch. And here you have the release lift. Again, with these, you have the ability to say, for example, you want the slide to be set to 4 different parameters. You can set that to be scaled in 4 different ways. So very, very cool. Now over here, you have the ability to do math modulations, that being where you take 2 different sources, source 1 or source 2, different source modulations, and you can combine them together to create either an addition of those 2, a multiplication of those 2. You can quantize them. You can set max and minimums, and you can set like a lag so it becomes sort of an envelope all by itself. Very, very deep stuff, and there's also an additional randomization. All right, so let's look at the modulation matrix here. Now here you can set a modulation source. Let's say, for example, I want to set an LFO, say LFO1. And I want to take the destination and I want to make that to be the source 1, which is the first oscillator. And I want to make that to being the position, which is here is the offset. So now you have to add the connection. Okay. And now you see it's changing the wavetable position. One on the sample and hold. So you can scale it just by clicking the outer ring. So that's how you set up a modulation. You can also just right-click on the different parameter, and it'll bring up this window. So if you want to set another modulation source, let's say, for example, I want to set it as an envelope, say envelope 2. I can add the connection, and it'll have the amount here. So that's all set. And then if I would go to envelope 2, and I change that, you'll see it changing the symmetry here. All right, and we can look at that, the mod matrix here. Here's envelope 2, wavetable symmetry. I want to increase it so you get a little bit more visualization of that. And if I move it here, you can actually see it in the screen being animated. Now looking here in the modulation matrix, each one of these slots, and as far as I know, there's an infinite number of slots that you can do as long as your computer can handle it. You can edit the transfer function so you can actually scale the individual modulation slot. And you can also save this stuff. You can save your own user ones, or there's no factory ones here, but you can save your user ones here if you want. And then you can recall them. Oh, here you save them. That's where you recalled them before, excuse me. All right, so let's get out of the mod matrix. Go back to the main panel here. And you'll see here that you have macros. The macros come in 2 different views. They're basically the same, though, in that you have 3 different macros and then the X and Y pad. Here's the other view. This is very similar to Roli's Seaward Rise control panel on the left-hand side. So you can set these as sources. So you can do some real-time control with these, and also you can set them to CC numbers so that you can use your controller to set that up. And this is an XY pad. If you use the other side here, you'll see how this changes. And then you can change the name here if you want to. So you can use these macros for multiple different destinations, as well as you can use the XY pad. All right, so let's take a look at the effects. The effects section is really cool. You have 12 different slots, and they're paired in 2 6-slot sections. And you have the ability to run them in parallel. This mixed, where you have it actually in series, and then it's mixed with the dry signal. You have mixed with a feedback loop. So you have the ability to feed it back. And then you have parallel also with the feedback loop. Very, very awesome capability there. Let's put it, let's put it in parallel mode. All right, so let's select an effect here. Just really quick, won't go through all these. You have the compressor, noise gate, bit crusher, a couple different distortions and EQ, an additional filter, chorus, flanger, phaser. You have a couple of delays. You have a grain delay, which is similar to the granular synth engine. And then you have a couple of reverbs. Well, hey, that's it. It's Roli's Equator2 MPE designed soft synth. It's really great. I like the way it sounds, and it's truly a sound designer's dream with all the oscillators, what they call sources, and all the modulations, and the really great controls for MPE. I want to thank you so much for watching this video. Please do share it and subscribe to this channel. Very much appreciate your support, as it said in the beginning of the video. And please do check out tjontheroad.com for more. Thank you so much. I'll see you next time.